We'll call the meeting to order, MPC. Is there any addition to the agenda? Not seeing any. Rex?
I also move the agenda as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Okay. Approval for the August 15th, 2017 MPC minutes. Bernice has moved. Is there any questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. And we'll move to development permits, file number DP 2017-110. And whenever you're ready. Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning. So this is, I'll just read the recommendation that MPC choose option 1, approval of development permit 2017-110 with the following conditions. This development permit is issued for an indoor boat storage business utilizing an existing shop defined as a, and this is an error, it should be a home-based business type 3. Sorry, my old habit. No variances have been granted. Development shall proceed according to agricultural general district requirements and must conform to all applicable provisions of the land use bylaw. No permanent development shall occur on or over any utility right-of-way or easement. Business to remain consistent with the application and letter of intent. Business is for boat storage only. No repair of boats is allowed. Applicant to obtain a building permit to inspect the existing shop and ensure the structure meets Alberta Safety Code requirements for indoor boat storage for a commercial business. All required renovations must be completed prior to operation of the business. Applicant to ensure approach to development is developed to county standards, and the permit is to be issued for a 2-year term expiring on September 19th, 2019. Key concepts: the applicant is requesting to operate an indoor boat storage business in an existing building as a home-based business type 3. And I'll go through my report. So this is located on Southeast 32, 2724, Plan 9610604, Lot 1. It's about 4.02 kilometers south of Highway 9 on Range Road 244. The parcel is 17.92 acres. It's zoned agricultural general. The proposal is to use an existing building to store 20 to 40 boats as a boat storage business. No outside storage is being proposed. The property will be securely fenced with a keypad gate and will be video monitored. The business is primarily seasonal, with the majority of customers picking up their boats between the months of May to June and dropping them off between September, October. Customers will be unhitching boats to the west of the building being used. Any customer parking, if necessary, will be north of the building. Hours of operation are by appointment only from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. The owner, residents of the parcel will operate the business. Excuse me. Land use bylaw. This application meets the parameters set out in the home-based business HBB section of the land use bylaw for a type 3. So the complete home-based business section is available as Appendix E of this report. I'll just outline a little bit from the HBB 3 section. So it's saying that development permit is required, a site plan is required, landscaping screening required, non-resident employees up to 4 is allowed, commercial vehicles and or trailers up to 4 business-related vehicles. Customer traffic is at the discretion of the development authority. Outside storage at the discretion of the development authority. And 1 accessory building is allowed to be used for an HBB3. Parking stalls, 1 for 2 employees and 1 commercial vehicle and 1 for customers. Home-based business type 3, the business can occur in both the residential home and accessory buildings. The business should not significantly change the external appearance of the residence, buildings, or land to the point where the primary residential use is not apparent. A business that becomes the primary use of the site in appearance or use will not be permitted. Examples include but are not limited to a small-scale landscaping company, trades, or mechanical welding services. Some outdoor storage is allowed, however, a site plan would be required, and it would include the dimensions of the storage area, and the applicant will be required to screen and fence any outdoor storage areas. There's no outdoor storage proposed for this one. Circulation comments, an agency circulation was not performed. Internal circulation for file review. Our planner had comments related to the scale of the business in relation to the residents, questions about the landscaping, traffic, and the compatibility with neighboring uses. Neighbor circulation to all neighbors within 1 mile. So at the time this report was made, there was no responses, but there has been since, which I've handed out to you. Did you want me to read them or? Yes? Okay.
I think, and since we haven't had a chance to review them, just read them, then the council can follow. And everybody will be aware.
I would like to voice my opposition to the home-based business 2017-110. The boat storage business that is proposed to be set up in our area is a bad idea. More non-agricultural traffic in the area is a rising problem. Farm equipment is getting larger and more traffic is not what we need. The other issue I have is the increased risk of crime in the area by storing boats so far from police presence. More people driving around and scoping out where they can make an easy score is never good. The number of vehicle thefts in the area just in the last 6 months is staggering, and adding a non-agricultural business in the area is a poor choice for progress. I farm 2 miles east of the proposed location. Please add my voice to those opposed to this proposal. And another resident. In regards to the proposed plan, I would like to let the record show that I am strongly opposed to this plan project and do not approve. We already have enough traffic on Range Road 244 for a farming community. The proposed high traffic times for this project fall both at spring seeding time and fall harvest for our community. The last thing we need is a bunch of boats up and down these roads during our peak times. The other major concern is also security. We have a full operation almost directly across the road. We constantly have people driving in and out of our yard looking for the other place. This will just increase with this, and along with that, the exposure to unwanted prying eyes that will come back out and steal from our property. It's bad enough out here as of late without the bait of all these proposed boats and the traffic exposure it will create. You say there will be a fence and surveillance cameras. These things don't keep the unwanted people and traffic from our properties. We just had a case this past week of a farmer having his vehicle stolen between this proposed location and Highway 9, right out from his field. This will drastically increase this problem in our area and bring a lot of unwanted attention to what used to be a quiet community. We do not need or want any more outside public exposure. This will do nothing but bring more crime and hassle to the established farmers in this community. The added traffic alone in our key operations times creates safety issues, let alone adding in the security and theft factors that will increase. We do not want to be exposed to more than needed problems. Add this to the already overrun use of the road and the poor quality of our access to the highway. This will just deteriorate it even more. This is a farming community, and this business in no way services the farms or is in any way a benefit or enhancement to the farming community. And that's everything. Oh, they also included actually an article from online about a dealership having boats stolen in Kalmar. So it is the recommendation to approve this application with conditions as noted, as I've already read in the RFD. And here is a location plan. It is east of the Rocky View County border, south of Highway 9. An aerial photo showing the proposed building, where the parking area is and the unhitching area. That's the building they intend to use. looking west from Range Road 244 and looking east from the building towards the road. That's their site plan that they submitted. And that's just the excerpt from the land use bylaw. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Bernice has a question.
I know you probably said it, Suzanne, but how many boats are supposed to be stored? 40?
I believe, I'll just double check.
And they're all going to be inside.
Correct. Yes, 20 to 40 boats.
So I'm just going by what they were saying about the traffic, so that would be approximately maybe 80 trips on that road within a time framing. Just, you know, parking it and taking out. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Ben, playing there?
Just, these letters that come in, I see you've got whoever sent them, the names are blanked out. What's the reason for that? Does not the applicant have the right to know who's sending these letters in?
It is pertinent to the application to know where these letters came from, and I can show you a location map. However, it's not relevant who sent them.
I can figure out where they come from. I can figure out who it is. I just wondering, is the person that's making the application, there's letters of opposition coming in and they have no idea where they're coming from. So I was just wondering if they have the right to know where these letters were coming from.
I can show you where they've come from. Would you like me to show you?
I know where they come from. I'm just
Okay.
talking about the applicant that's applied for the boat storage has no idea where they've come from because this letter is public, right?
Right.
And we've crossed out the name, so the applicant doesn't have any idea who's doing the complaining.
Okay.
Not for my benefit, I can figure out where they came from.
Okay. So are you requesting that I say the names?
I'm just asking why they were crossed out, why it isn't a public document. If it's public, and they're sending in, and they want their views known as to what is happening and why it's happening, and they're opposed to it or in favor of it, should it not be part of the record as to who they are that is making the complaint that's just a question.
Okay. Can you answer that, Suzanne, or you want?
It's in our policy our policy to remove the names of late. Andy, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, MPC. Normally what happens is that anything that comes in from a member of the public in the way of comments goes through the FOIP process, and the FOIP process can include removing the names as long as an address is provided, or alternatively, the name is there and there's no address provided. But in this instance, we needed to map where the locations were to make sure that they weren't completely irrelevant to this application. So we mapped those locations, and Suzanne has that map. Normally, if a person comes in and wants to make a complaint and step up to the podium, then they have to provide their name. So, but we're happy to provide the names to you if you'd like.
Okay, well, so having said that, I think we'll view where they come from now, and then I'll let Brenda talk.
Okay, so the first letter I read came from this location. This is the subject property. And the second letter I read came from the landowner that owns these parcels.
Okay, Brenda, you had a question?
So on that note, if it had been a positive response, the name would have just been displayed. That's, I guess, my concern, is that if it had been a positive response to the application, then that letter would have come in and the names wouldn't have been darkened out. Because that's happened all the time if it's positive and supports it. So if you're opposed, then your name isn't displayed. So that's why the policy, to me, needs to be in stone, how it's happened. So if you're going to make a complaint or you're going to put a positive response, the name is on it. Otherwise, like, we're not doing fair diligence to both sides.
Okay, Alice?
My concern is, to me, this becomes an anonymous letter. So if there's no signature, right? It's an anonymous letter. So now do we take it serious? We don't. Anonymous letters are not taken serious. We don't apply it. So if the letter is, if the signature isn't there of who it belongs to, so I think we've got to rethink some of this. Because it's a direct application and these people are making the complaint, I feel their names should be displayed because the applicant has a right to know. And if they're anonymous, I will not entertain those letters. Thank you.
Kate, first of all, they signed them so they're not anonymous. That was the county that wiped the name out, so it's not anonymous. And we've been told here where those letters have come from. So if you need the names or whatever, I don't know what you need to do to find out, but these are not anonymous letters because it's not the person that wrote the letter's fault. They signed them. So beyond that, it's not anonymous. It'd be different if they sent in a letter and didn't sign it, but they did.
Okay. So, any other questions? Don, do you have a question?
No, I believe the applicant should have the right to address the concerns of the people involved. You know, maybe he can offset some of their concerns, but a good neighbor policy. I think the applicant should have that right.
Okay. Any other questions? Does the applicant want to address any of this? Does anybody want to speak for or against? Not seeing any. Please use the podium, please. Yeah, okay. But right now, we're talking about the application, the name. I'm thinking staff, will we be rethinking it? So no questions? Okay, I guess for me, we have no letters for support. We have 2 letters against. And I haven't received any phone calls, that's for sure. That's something different for me, yeah. Be hard for me to support it. So what's MPC's wishes? Brenda?
Questions? So, can I just ask questions about, and I might have missed it, so I apologize, Suzanne, if I did. The shop that it's being stored in, it's commercial? Is it?
It wasn't built to commercial standards, but I did put a condition on that they had to have it inspected and brought up to commercial standards.
So that's safety-wise for that, oh, okay, well, that's fine then.
Correct, yes.
I wasn't sure on that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Any? Brenda?
I'll make a motion that we're on 2017-110, approval of the development permit application with the following conditions that were stated as recommended by staff, 1 through 9, which is only a 2-year permit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Correct, yes.
so it's only a 2-year permit.
Okay, any questions or concerns? All in favor? Opposed? Is carried. What's that? 4-3, yeah. Okay,
Before we go on though, Glenn, I think we need to, sorry. Before we go on, I think we do need to have staff revisit. I don't like the idea that whoever writes the letter, whether it's for it or against it, their name isn't public. They're writing it, if it was me and I put my name on it, I'm putting it on. I don't have an issue with it going out there. If they have an issue, they don't send it. Obviously they've put their name to it, so they didn't have an issue with it being out there. And I think everybody needs to know who is in favor and who isn't in favor of these applications for the applicant's benefit.
I agree with that. I would like to respect them by putting their name there.
is anyone against it? Having the names on? no one's against it. So I guess in the future, we can remedy that. Brenda?
I think this is the first time that's happened, because up until this point, we've always had names on this, so I don't know, maybe it's just a change in what's happening on staff-wise, but up until this point, I've always seen the positive letters, and it's been,
Yeah, that's
so
fine.
I don't know what the change was, so.
Yeah. Staff know how we feel now. Okay, we'll move on to subdivision applications, file number SD 2017-26.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is subdivision application SD 2017-26, which is a proposal to subdivide one 3-acre parcel from the titled area. The staff recommendation is option 2, that the application be refused. However, if it is approved, we do have conditions noted in Appendix A. Their staff's recommendation is refusal, as it does not meet the key strategic goals of the SSRP, does not meet the agricultural and residential sections of the MDP, does not meet the requirements of the LUB as it relates to the MDP, and does not meet the growth and agricultural goals of the RGMS. Bit of background: the intent of the application is to subdivide a 3-acre parcel that was previously redesignated under bylaw 2015-13. The parcel was rezoned to Country Residential District on June 9th, 2015. Staff had recommended refusal based on the merits of the agricultural and residential development sections in the MDP and the characteristics of the Country Residential District of the land use bylaw. So there's the 2 options, and the staff's recommending refusal. This was submitted by Odessa. She's at a conference today, so I'm representing the report on her behalf. Files SD 2017-26. I'll just go down to the map here as I go through the report. The location plan of the subject lands. This is the proposed subdivision, 3.27 acres size, so I'll just stay on this one as I go through it. In terms of the MDP, it doesn't align with the agricultural objectives or the residential development, as it notes future development in the county should occur in a socially and environmentally sustainable manner in growth nodes. The proposed subdivision does also not meet the requirements of this section, such as the fact that the parcel is intended for a rural residence on a quarter where the primary uses are agricultural in nature. The proposed subdivision is not within an existing hamlet or urban area of the county. There is no existing servicing or nearby pipe servicing for the proposed parcel, and agricultural land would be fragmented. In addition, the general residential development policies have also not been met, as it's not located within or adjacent to an urban area, and the servicing is not there. The agricultural objectives of section 3.1 were not met, as it would further fragment productive agricultural land, but also potentially create land use conflicts between the existing land uses on the quarter section. Agricultural Services provided comments on the subdivision application, stating that they had no comment as the parcel had already been rezoned to Country Residential District. However, after examining the redesignation file, Agricultural Services identified in their 2014 comments that the parcel had high-class 2 soils and native grasslands. Further to the land use conflicts, highly rated agricultural land and environmentally important native grassland would be fragmented through the proposed subdivision. In terms of the land use bylaw, the proposed parcel is designated as Country Residential District, which is intended for residential development outside the county's hamlets that is aligned with the policies of the MDP. As outlined, this proposal does not meet those. In terms of the regional growth management strategy, the proposed subdivision contradicts the smart growth direction in section 3.2.1 and the directions for growth noted in the RGMS in section 4.3. The RGMS is intended to provide a guideline for development in the county for the next 40 years. The key considerations that the RGMS addresses for the county include quality of life, agriculture, community development, transportation and infrastructure, and water and wastewater, water conservation. Future growth in the county is premised around developing connected, complete, and sustainable communities through nodal growth. By focusing growth in areas where amenities, services, and residential communities already exist, the economic and infrastructure demands can be managed more appropriately and responsibly. In In terms of the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, it contradicts this, as this notes the agricultural industry is the #1 renewable and sustainable resource in the region, and that it should be preserved. Watershed management is also another key strategy of the SSRP because of the limited water resources in Alberta. Residential subdivisions take away from the agricultural uses on the corridor and put greater strain on the aquifers in the county. In terms of our technical review, the parcel would have access off of Range Road 252. If subdivided and approved by MPC, a new approach would be required, so that'd be a condition of subdivision approval that it meets county standards. The applicants completed the necessary water and wastewater servicing studies, and these were signed off with by McElhaney, so staff's got no concerns with the servicing of this parcel. In terms of municipal reserve, an appraisal report was completed by Wellischuk Associates, and an estimated appraisal value came in at $5,000 per acre. If approved, the estimated amount of MR cash in lieu required would be about $1,500 for the parcel. Once we get the final plan of survey in, that's when we do the final determination on the exact amount. In terms of circulation, this was circulated to all landowners within a mile radius. No letters were received in support or objection at the time this report was prepared. Alberta Health Services had their standard comments in the external review. ATCO Pipelines noted no concerns. Fortis noted no easements required. TELUS stated no right-of-way is required, and the WID also noted no concerns. Internally, Agricultural Services noted the subdivision occurs in an area that's already received rezoning approval. As noted earlier, there's two options for MPC's consideration: that the subdivision application be approved with the conditions noted, or that the subdivision application be refused. And I'll just go through the rest of the maps. This is the landowner map showing everyone that was circulated within a mile radius. As noted, no letters were received. I'll now go up to the recommendation and conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Brenda?
So I was curious to know about the report, and I guess I have some issues with how some of the staff is interpreting the MDP versus the SSRP and the land use bylaw. Because our MDP hasn't been brought up to speed with our land use bylaw. And quite frankly, the regional growth management strategy and the NDP contradict each other with regards to 4.3-11 and 3.6 with regards to, they actually contradict each other. They state that. So I'm looking at that, and I'm noticing that the indication is that it was to put impact on infrastructure, water servicing, and our own infrastructure. And yet the water and servicing is provided by the actual person that the resources isn't on ours, it's on their impact. They have to provide water, they have to provide servicing, and they've got proof of that. So I guess this reminded me of one that we had done previously, and I'm looking at this and I'm finding it hard to, it says that under land use policy, the proposed parcel is currently designated as country residential district, which is intended for residential development outside the county hamlets. So when you go and use the regional growth management strategy plan and you use smart growth direction in section 3.21, well, that is sort of intended for residential, which is, and I can, the regional growth management, it's intended for intense industrial or residential in communities like hamlets. Smart growth it was meant for that. So I'm just not, the three is not matching up for me. So I don't see a problem with this one, and it's actually related to one of the other ones that was here. And when I went back and read how you guys connected it, the interpretation to me is not right. Some of it was for hamlet residential areas and more directed that way, the smart growth policies. And I think that's how the interpretation is. Do you want me to pull that section for you?
No, that's all right. I just wanted to go back to the servicing to begin with. So when we're talking about water servicing and an impact on the county and the systems, we're talking about the aquifers as well that are underneath the county. That's a limited resource. Even though it's not a county infrastructure, we don't have a water treatment plant for subdivisions such as this. When we're looking at comparing it to the RGMS and the MDP, we're looking at those aquifers and making sure that they're not being drained and depleted too much as well. And we're going to be looking at doing further studies to look at where the relative health of that is for the county overall, so we can preserve the agricultural operations and keep everything else going. So when we're talking about servicing, we're not just talking about water and servicing tied to our specific systems. In regards to the policies, the RGMS and the MDP, you're right, absolutely, there's definitely some contradictions there. The RGMS needs updated, there's no question of that. We're looking to do that in 2018. The MDP also needs some updates as well. There's some direct contradictions. The RGMS has a 3-lot rule for every quarter in the county, whereas the MDP allows for 5 lots.
Six.
That's six, well,
Six.
5 and the 6 is the trigger for more. So 5, you can have up to the 5. So that's one of the major disparities that exist between the two policies in the county. So there's definitely some contradictions, but there are some broader themes that overlap in terms of minimizing country residential acreage and fragmentation. So that's what this report was largely based off of. The land use bylaw, it doesn't so much set that direction at all. It's the tool in that it outlines what the districts are, what the zoning are, what the rules and regulations are. But a land use bylaw isn't going to set the stage for whether the county wants to go in a sprawling country residential direction, or if it wants to preserve agricultural land and have only a few subdivisions in areas that are appropriate for it. The land use bylaw is not that tool. That's the MDP and the RGMS, which we're looking to redo.
So, and maybe can I respond back to that? So on a couple of comments in the thing, it states that there's an assumption here by staff that they are removing grasslands, but there was an assumption put in here that they're also damaging grasslands. So I guess that's an assumption that I didn't like in the report. And also, I guess if we're going to say it's going to impact the watershed, then other than the aquifers, how does it impact the watershed as a whole? Like, what is the impact is what I'd like to know. Is there riparian areas on there, or is there something I'm missing? Because I looked at the map and I couldn't see anything, so.
Through the chair. So our ag comments on the grasslands, they're based through our Ag Services Department, which goes out and looks and has that expertise to determine if native grasslands are being impacted. So all the comments in the report would have been based off of that circulation and the specific review on that. In terms of watersheds, no, it largely speaks to the aquifers being affected. Of course, if another well goes in, it removes so much more and does affect that overall aquifer health. In terms of wetlands, through my review, I don't see any of those impacts taking place here.
Well, and I guess my other question was, when there was an impact on our infrastructure and it would be upgraded to roads, I noticed that in the Alberta, or in our, within house, there was no comments made by transportation, and the comments made by the Ag Board didn't reflect any changes to this. So I guess when I read it, it was contradictory, so I have no problem with this application, so thank you.
Other questions? Ben?
I hope it's a short one. In the comments, it said that the current location would require infrastructure updates on the road and the access. And and I'm wondering if because this is a permanent, and the one we just looked at prior to that is a 2-year or secondary use, whatever you want to call it. There was no mention of the road there, and this parcel probably wouldn't create the traffic that the last one created. So did they go out, is there a difference in the two roads, or do they use the same criteria for both of them, or?
Sorry, were you referencing the transportation upgrade?
Under Regional Growth Management Strategy Plan, on the second page there, second paragraph, where it says that infrastructure updates on the road and the access. I can see the access.
Yeah.
But the road, there shouldn't be any more need to increase that infrastructure than there would have been on the one we just did, which would probably create more traffic, so.
Through the chair, what I think the planner was noting was, I think they're just noting road and access, the approach was needing to be
I can
updated
see
and
the
upgraded. I think they
approach,
kind of were combining it into kind of one category. So much because you're correct, one subdivision. There is an incremental increase, of course, in strain, but this specific subdivision wouldn't in our current policies require an additional upgrade to the road.
Any other questions? Ellis?
If you take our planning document and you kind of brushed off the land use framework as maybe not that important, and our municipal development plan was more important. If you take our planning schedule, the land use bylaws is the thing you stand by. The municipal development plan is the lesser plan, so it shouldn't take precedent over the land use framework. I just thought that was, the way you presented that maybe was giving the wrong idea, at least the way I look at it.
Through the chair, so the land use framework is separate from the land use bylaw. So the land use framework's at the top. There's the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, which comes out of that. Then there's the Regional Growth Management Strategy, which comes out of that. Then there's the Municipal Development Plan. The land use bylaw is below the Municipal Development Plan. So the Municipal Development Plan is more important than the land use bylaw in terms of the direction for the county.
Okay, any other questions? Public have any questions or concerns? Please use the podium, please.
Representing the landowners. And my only comment would be that we are actually consolidating the acreage. It's between two existing acreages. So for services for the county, busing and things like that, I mean, that is a cost savings when we see acreages sprawled all over the countryside. And we're not necessarily interested in having acreages all over the countryside either, but it is a cost savings when it comes to county services. I just wanted to point that out because the picture wasn't very good.
Okay, thanks for that. Anything else? Don?
In regards to aquifers and water, there's plenty of it down in this area. You can almost throw a crowbar in the ground and hit water.
Okay. Anything else? MPC's wishes?
I'll move, after reviewing the file, I'll move, I got to get the number, sorry. Subdivision 2017-26 for approval. So it's not what, I'm not taking what staff, I'm moving it for approval.
And conditions?
With the conditions
Appendix
on
A.
Appendix A, sorry.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And subdivision application SD 2017-27, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this proposes to subdivide 3 parcels from the titled area. One is 33.61 acres, one is 46.9 acres, and the remnant will be 58.6 acres. Staff's recommending that the subdivision be approved with the conditions noted, as it meets the requirements of the agricultural and natural areas section of the MDP, meets the rules and regulations of the LUB, meets the relevant requirements of the RGMS and the SSRP. Bit of background, this proposed subdivision was originally brought to MPC on September 14th, 2010, with the intent to subdivide out the 2 parcels of the 33.6 and 46.9 acres. It was approved, however, the previous conditions of approval were not met at the time of the original subdivision. Therefore, the application was not endorsed by the county and the application was closed. Since the closing of the original application, the county acquired some land and acquired land that turned into a road right-of-way, allowing the applicant to legally access their parcel. The applicant has resubmitted their subdivision application, which is what is before MPC at this time, and the proposed subdivision has changed from 2 to 3 parcels, with the 3rd parcel being the remnant resulting from the 2 parcel subdivision on the quarter. Therefore, the 3 parcels proposed for subdivision are the 33.6, the 46.9, and the 58.6. The intent is to separate the existing homestead from the remnant uses. So 2 options, that the application be approved or refused. Staff is recommending option 1, approval. Once again, Odessa was the planner with this file. I'm doing this report in her absence as she's away. So I'll just go down to the map as I go through the report. This is a location plan of the subject lands. here's the proposed parcel. So I'll just go through the report here. Okay. So as noted, it was not initially, the conditions could not be met. Range Road 264 runs north of the parcel, but however, the road allowance is not developed all the way, and a driveway was established to connect to Range Road 264 to provide access to the applicant's land. However, at the time of the application submission, the county requested that the approximately 1 acre of land owned by the neighbor to the north be purchased to allow for appropriate legal access. Unfortunately, the land purchase was not done in time, and the request for a final time extension on September 17th, 2014 by the applicant was denied by the county. Since the closing of the original application, the county did acquire the land and turned it into the right-of-way, allowing for the legal access, as I noted, which has brought this application forward today. In terms of the municipal development plan review, the MDP identifies agricultural lands and practices as important economic and social components. The objectives of Section 3.1 of the MDP have been partially met through this application, as the proposed subdivision fragments agricultural lands, but it is necessary to provide joint access through the existing driveway for the proposed 2 parcels. The existing primary dwelling is set back from the main access point of the parcel, and to subdivide a smaller parcel would result in a panhandle, which is discouraged by the county. The existing residence and pasture land and the ranch on the second parcel would be maintained through this subdivision, upholding the agricultural components of the land as they exist. In addition, the size of the parcels would allow for the maintenance of the agricultural general district designation and more extensive agricultural pursuits. The application also meets the requirements of Section 3.2 natural areas, as the proposed and existing subdivision boundaries do not encroach the coulee and creek that run through the quarter. The existing structures are maintained along the toe of the coulee, and no new structures are proposed for the application. Staff has no concerns that the current structure and proposed subdivision would encroach on the coulee or the slopes. In terms of the land use bylaw review, the proposed subdivision did not require redesignation, as the parcel sizes were over 5 acres in size, maintaining their agricultural general district designation. At this time, there's 3 dwellings on the quarter section. The primary dwelling, a cabin, and a newly permitted manufactured dwelling, which was DP 2017-099. The manufactured dwelling was previously permitted as a temporary dwelling until 2006, when it expired. The owner was granted a development permit for the mobile this year as a dwelling manufactured, since it no longer fits the definition of a dwelling temporary under the new land use bylaw. The cabin is legal non-conforming due to its age and its pre-existing use on the parcel. The land use bylaw allows for 2 dwellings on a parcel that's 80 acres or greater in size and zoned AG. The proposed subdivision would result in 3 parcels under 80 acres. However, the cabin and manufactured dwelling would be subdivided into one of these parcels and would therefore be non-compliant. Planning and development staff believe the manufactured dwelling would then be best suited as a garden suite because of its size and building type. So a variance would be required at the time to relax the 40-foot setback requirement for the garden suite to the primary residence, and then the cabin would become the primary dwelling. If this is quite complicated and going in many different ways, but it's, to put it in more layman's terms, it's basically going to be brought into conformance with the land use bylaw when the parcels are, if the parcels are approved to be subdivided, the relevant number of dwellings will fit on the different parcels that are taking place. So I'll just go to the last paragraph here. Because of the timing of the subdivision application, staff believe it would be in the owner's best interest to wait for MPC's decision on the subdivision application before pursuing the required development permits. This would allow the development officers to work with the owner and the land at its most current state, providing more consistency and clarity, and then if any future issues arise with the application, they can be addressed before the permits are submitted. In terms of analyzing this application through the regional growth management strategy, it was noted to meet the RGMS and the key examples. The application was examined under the agricultural components because of its current agricultural use. As the parcels are larger than 30 acres, they will still allow for more extensive agricultural uses, as well as the fact that the fragmentation of the quarter follows pre-existing boundaries created by the current development on the parcel, with no agricultural land being removed from production. The remnant parcels considered a natural subdivision because it's separated from the rest of the quarter from the WID parcel, which therefore minimizes additional fragmentation on the parcel. The parcels run along the coulee, incorporate the slopes and the native grasslands, which align with the natural environment section of the RGMS. Therefore, staff has no concerns. So although the intent of the subdivision is not for future development, the existing uses in pasture land are being preserved through the maintenance of the existing development's footprint, which will continue to support and enhance the agricultural components of the land. So staff then reviewed it through the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, which focuses, of course, on agricultural preservation and minimizing fragmentation. In the Ag Services report, grasslands were identified as being present on the corridor, and in the SSRP, it notes the importance of preserving these. I'll now get to the technical review of this application. The corridor section has access through a county-owned road allowance to Range Road 264. With the proposed subdivision, the driveway leading to Range Road 264 would be subdivided down the center of the driveway to allow for joint access to either parcel. Because the two proposed parcels are owned by the same landowner, a joint access agreement would not be necessary at this time. In terms of servicing, the existing house has septic and water and shares water with the cabin, which has its own septic system in place. Alberta Health Services comments have stated that the water supply for a dwelling must be contained within the property's boundaries. As a result, a water report will be required to ensure that a third well can be supported on the parcel for the cabin, and to ensure that a new well can be drilled within the proposed property lines where the cabin currently sits. The manufactured home has its own water and septic servicing. In terms of municipal reserve is not required, as planning and development does not see these subdivisions as terminal, given their large size. In terms of circulation to adjacent landowners, it was circulated to all landowners within a mile, with no letters received in support or objection at the time this report was prepared. Alberta Culture notes and identifies 2 areas of cultural historical importance on the property. The site requires avoidance from any future non-agricultural development activities or additional studies would be required. If avoidance is not feasible, a historic resources application would be required. Alberta Health Services had their standard comments. ATCO Gas and ATCO Pipelines noted no concerns. TELUS had no concerns, and WID noted they have no objections. However, if there are plans for any structures or utilities on the subdivided piece, we'd have comments to the setback requirements. Internally, Agricultural Services noted the subdivision will result in the fragmentation of agricultural land and is therefore not supported by Agricultural Services. The subdivision will fragment and potentially lead to development on native grassland. Native grassland supports biodiversity, a value identified in the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan. We are not supportive of the application due to its potential to fragment and remove native grassland. Setbacks should be maintained from the tributary as per the stepping back from the water guidelines. Development Services noted that setbacks should be established between the structures and new property lines. Development permits for the cabin and manufactured home are required for the new subdivision in order to meet the requirements of the land use bylaw. The cabin would be permitted as a primary residence, the manufactured as a garden suite, with a variance provided for the distance between it and the proposed primary dwelling, if approved by MPC when that DP came in. Let's go through the rest of the maps. These are the 2 historical resources that were noted by the province in these yellowy orange squares here. This is the circulation map, the agricultural assessment. Back to the recommendation. If approved, these are the proposed conditions for approval. The notable one is a groundwater assessment report would be required, and then our standard agreements, taxes, plan a survey, and approaches to county standards. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Brenda?
Ben, do you have your little pointer thing? Can we go back to a map? So when you were talking to historical resources and you pointed it out there, right there, that particular area, that is where I presume the joint road is as well. So you're taking, from my understanding, they're splitting this road in half. I'm pretty shaky today. For access too. So on that, what happens to that historical resources picture there? Because that historical resources, the road runs right through it.
So they'll be required to submit that when that approach comes in and they're looking to do the joint access, it would then come into the county and be reviewed through Public Works when that goes through. And there'd be consultation with historic resources at that time.
Okay, because like I said, that's kind of a, if that's a historical resources point going through there, that's going to be a contentious issue with the province.
And that will be a condition. If the condition is not met through the approach, then the subdivision would not be able to move forward. So that will need to be addressed. You're correct.
So my next question is, they split this road in half to provide access to this parcel here. Is that what I gathered from you? Is there, as part of the report, you said that they were splitting the road half for access.
So that we wouldn't classify it as a road. I know semantics. I know it's just as the driveway. So when we're concerned about splitting in half, it'd be the actual approach, making sure that that has the joint access. But once we get onto the parcel, the county has no interest or we have nothing we can do about it at that point.
Yeah, well, I guess that's my concern, because at the point of access, right here is a historical resource. And then that first is your first thing. So if they decide to pull it, the historical resource, they may not even have access down to here. Is there another road coming down this side?
We're gonna see if we can get transportation to come in to speak to the specifics of, because they would have reviewed this and come through with their comments and what they're permitting for access. So when we will see if Mike can come in and speak to that more specifically.
And do you know what the historical resource is?
What the historic is?
Yeah, the historical resource, what is it considered, or?
Through the chair, no, I'm not aware what their resource is. They
No,
just
that's
note
just
the
my concern.
categorization. Yeah.
Sorry
No,
for us
we'll
to
see
prove
if,
it. Thanks, Ben.
Just,
unfortunately, the planner on the file is not here. That might have more of the specifics
Yeah,
to
no,
speak
that's
to
fine.
that, but hopefully Mike would have had background on it, but through their review, so they can maybe speak to that.
Well, I don't have a
so who has the say on the historical
resource.
resource?
The province, culture and
Province,
tourism.
Yeah, so if the historical resource people up there don't agree with the allowance, then they won't sign off on the approaches, and then the thing is non-existent. It doesn't really pertain to the county liking it or not, or council. It's in their court now.
Correct, and there already is, as you can see, the driveway going through the
Yeah.
historical resource, whatever it
Yeah.
may be. So it'd be interesting to see if they'd have any further comment, but as I don't see it largely shifting much from what it already is in terms of the built driveway, I can't see there being major concern at their level.
Any other question, Bernice?
So under the AB culture in our readout here, it says if it's not feasible, you have to do a historic resources application. Is that correct? Am I reading that right? Page
That's
5.
correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Alan?
I respect that this isn't your file, Colton. So do you know if Vulcan County was consulted? Because I believe it's in the intermunicipal development plan.
I'll just have to check the folder. I would assume they have been consulted because it's rated adjacent, but I want to check the folder to confirm whether that was done. What is this, 2017-27?
The other,
Let him answer the question
Okay.
first.
you're good.
Yeah. Through the chair, Vulcan County was circulated. You'll see this is our referral agency contact list that we utilize when we circulate to applications. So an X is marked beside all agencies that were circulated. Vulcan County is at the bottom here, and there's an X beside them showing that the file planner on this did circulate to Vulcan County.
Okay. Good morning, Mike. There was a question about the historical resource on this road and Public Works allowing access. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. So I'm guessing from Public Works' point of view, right now, you're okay with the approach, but if the province comes back with a historical resource there and doesn't want to approach through there, then you'll have to revisit it, or what? I don't know, what would the process be?
Yeah, that's correct. So through the chair, the application would come forward to Public Works as an approach application. With that, we make note that there is a historical resources right on the same location as that. Chances are that environment would recommend, or the province would recommend, that we don't permit that there, and we'd have to look at another location. I can't say we've verified if any sightlines are appropriate other than this location and that for this application, so it'd have to be reviewed at that time again. A shared approach is still permitted under our policies and guidelines, as long as it meets sight lines and is the appropriate width. So,
okay. So one of the conditions says approaches to the proposed parcels and remainder built and located to county standards and approved by Public Works Department at the owner's expense. So you figure that condition would cover that off?
that's correct, because we would go through and if that condition can't be met because of historical resources, we'd have to look at alternatives, just like they had in the past. This applicant had looked at purchasing adjoining land to meet the requirement in the previous application. So it may have to be looked at again that way.
Okay, thanks. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah, I guess it's just a concern, I guess, with regards to a historical resource and a driveway going right through it as existing. So is the province going to come back and say, we can't allow that through there?
So, any other questions?
So through the chair, that should be noted as with MPC. If MPC does approve this and then that condition cannot be met, the application would have to go back to MPC for further review of potential new conditions with MPC as the subdivision authority.
But that would just be course. It's a matter of course, right?
Through the chair, that's correct. We would hope that these conditions can be met as is and that you don't have to have this again.
That's right. Okay, any other questions?
Historical resources, do we know what it is? Do we know what the historical resource is?
Through the chair, once they'd have to submit their application to the province for the greater detail, and we'd get greater detail on what the actual resource might be. It could be, yeah, I don't want to speculate.
Suzanne?
I was speaking with the applicant because I was talking to him about the garden suite, and he told me, oh, there's a pile of rocks out there or something. I think it's like a teepee ring or, yeah, that's what he said.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Don?
Just information under the Bison Historical Society. We had questions to approach them at one time from Sitka right to Calgary. That river hill and so many miles this way is the most, I would just say it, ancient type of archaeological stuff that they have found. One is just west at McKinnon's Flat. Some buffalo skulls started dropping out of the river, or out of the riverbank, and now there's an intensive dig going on there. And they figure that site is maybe 3,000 years old, and it was a campground.
Okay. Rex?
So just two things. One is a very minor thing, but maybe for record keeping. In the very first paragraph on a recommendation, it says you're recommending option 2 be approved. Then you say recommending option 1 approval. Am I not on the right one? 2017-27. Here.
Oh, yeah.
Are you reading that too? There. Oh, you went too far.
Through the chair, that'll have to be corrected through the minutes. Thank you.
I guess, so my follow-up question really to this is we have an ASB that has recommended that this is a fragmentation, and we have a staff that's recommending approval. So can you just give me a layman's breakdown on what it means for this landowner? Because I want to say that there was a lot of work put into this application, so I just don't want to dismiss it. I'm just trying to get a better idea of what would happen if it was refused and what the complication would be.
Yeah, is the applicant landowner here? I think they could speak to it better in layman's,
Okay.
if that's okay through the chair.
That's fine, sure.
Question there?
Yeah, so I guess my question is if this is refused, what complication is this putting on yourself as the landowner?
Complication, does it, well, it doesn't allow me to, I'm at the age where I can't look after the whole parcel, and I would like to sell the working side, because I've had it for sale for 4 years, the whole parcel. It's too large for any individual to take over because of the cost. So this would divide the cost up, and I could sell that parcel of working side off to somebody that can manage the, if I want to sell the whole parcel, they can't manage it financially, so. And I would like to live in my house and on my 33 acres for the rest of my life, so. And the parcel across the coulee is inaccessible to me because I got to drive 7 kilometers around to get to it because I can't get across the creek. So that's why I want to take that parcel off. It can be sold to somebody that can use it. It's good grazing land. It's all natural grass. It's never been broken. So that would be the ramifications would be that I have to leave it for sale as a full parcel, and very few people can afford that.
Okay, well, I guess for some reason I was thinking maybe that there was a gravel resource on this property and there was
I've never
some
checked.
access issues there. So
Never
it's-
checked it. I don't
So
know.
it's just strictly a subdivision application.
That's all it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
And as far as the historical, we made the historical application and they came back with what, but I failed to see what's historical at the approach, because that road was built there 30-some years ago on the exact piece that they're telling me that can't be, that is historical. So how is it historical now and it wasn't 30 years ago?
It's 30 years older.
But there's nothing there. Whatever was there was destroyed when they put the road through originally.
That's right.
And the other historical portion, there's nothing there. There's rocks in the ground, that's it, and it's all natural pasture land. So I don't know what you call historical and how you come across a piece that's historical. If that's historical, what about across on the next quarter that we just purchased and paid the county to purchase and put an approach in and it wasn't checked to be historical at that point, is that historical on the other side of the quarter?
That's, I guess, a question for Alberta Environment or whoever looks after the historical.
It's not an Alberta Environment, it's the Historical Society.
Is there a historical?
But I don't
Whoever it
understand
is.
how you can just all of a sudden come out of and take one little parcel and a whole that's historical.
Yeah.
And nobody visited my land. Nobody came and visited it.
Yeah.
They didn't do a site check.
Okay.
So I don't know how you come up with something historical just out of the blue.
I don't have a clue.
I don't either, so it's hard to say.
Bernice has a
But
question.
it's not going to impact, I don't want to subdivide anything else. I just want to subdivide off the working side and subdivide off the other side. Maybe somebody else can use that property because I can't access it.
So,
Okay.
through the chair, are you saying that there's nothing visible at these historical sites that you can see?
There's
That they-
rocks.
Just the rocks?
There's a whole bunch of rocks. But this is the part that,
Are they in circular
yeah,
form or are
this
they
is the
just a
part
pile?
that really confuses me. All they're saying, I can't put a permanent structure there. If I want to break it and turn it into agricultural land, I can do it. So
Okay. That's kind of good.
if I break that land and turn it into a hay field, that's okay, but I can't put a permanent structure on it.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to see if you could actually see
I'm
something.
confused.
If you break it, you pick the rocks, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the rocks and they'll be in a pile over there.
You confused me too.
Wow, that's weird.
MPC's wishes.
So,
Don?
Also move, here we are. SD 2017-27 approval was subject to conditions.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thanks for coming in. And subdivision application SD 2017-28.
Get to do my own. I feel comfortable. No. So subdivision application SD 2017-28. The application is to subdivide one new parcel plus or minus 3.67 acres in size. Staff's recommending option 1, that subdivision application SD 2017-28 be approved for the following reasons. The proposed subdivision fits within the long-term planning objective and vision of the RGMS for the county. The big reason for this is because this proposed subdivision is within a growth node, a rural community noted within the RGMS, which is Ardenode. The proposed application largely aligns with the objectives and policies of the MDP. The proposed application aligns with the rules and regulations of the land use bylaw, and staff has no concerns with the servicing and access for this proposed subdivision. The subject area of the proposed subdivision was rezoned on April 16, 2016. There was previously a resident and associated servicing at the site of the proposed subdivision. The dwelling has been moved off, however, the well was still in existence at the time. I'll just go down to the map as I go through my report. This is the location plan. You'll see it's right adjacent to Ardenode here. This is the tentative plan that was submitted by the applicant. A bit more useful is I overlaid it with an area plan, just so it's a bit clearer as to where it actually is. In terms of the RGMS, it aligns as it focuses country residential growth in what is noted as a rural community node. Rural community nodes are noted in the RGMS as places where existing country residential development will be maintained. It also notes that these areas will not be the subject of future investment, however, existing service levels will be maintained. As this proposed parcel is the site of a previous residential dwelling with existing private servicing, well, and a previous septic field, staff's of the opinion that it aligns with the growth objectives of the rural community nodes as described in the RGMS. A country residential designation is more appropriate than a hamlet designation due to the parcel size and shape, as well as the fact that rural community nodes are more suited for this nature of development rather than hamlet designated lots. Hamlet parcels are typically smaller in nature and should rely on municipal servicing, although not always the case in the county. All of the noted rural community nodes in the RGMS, which include Dallam, Chancellor, Cluny, Redland, Nightingale, and Ardenode, do not have complete municipal servicing, which is why future development should be minimal in comparison to the noted growth nodes in the RGMS. Staff is of the opinion that this proposal aligns with those growth objectives. In regards to the MDP, it was reviewed and it was found to be largely in alignment. Section 3.1 notes agricultural policies and objectives should be followed and ag fragmentation should be minimized. You'll note that was an existing previous site and it's not currently farmed. The proposed subdivision is also bordered to the north by an existing country residential development and to the east and south by vegetation. The western boundary is Range Road 253 and environmentally sensitive lands on the other side of that, which will not likely be suitable for future development. Given the context of the surrounding features, staff does not, in their opinion, perceive to be strong conflict between non-compatible land uses. During the circulation process of this application, concern was raised by a circulated landowner that was determined to be 1 mile plus away from this proposal that they had an apiary or a beekeeping operation on their parcel. Due to the significant distance between the parcels and a staff review of apiary practices, staff does not have a concern with the presence of this agricultural operation. Staff provided the landowner with the contact information of the concerned ratepayer for them to follow up as well and discuss the application if they desired, with their sign-off, of course. Section 3.6 of the MDP speaks to residential development policies that should be followed and considered by development of this nature. Although this proposal does not fulfill many of these objectives or align with many of the policies due to the fact that it is a one-lot subdivision that will be serviced internally, there is general alignment with focusing growth in close proximity to a county hamlet such as Ardenode. The residential objectives also focus on minimizing encroachment onto agricultural lands or fragmenting natural areas. The applicant designed the proposed subdivision to minimize fragmentation of the environmentally sensitive areas. Section 3.1 of the MDP speaks to water and wastewater servicing policies. This proposed subdivision aligns with a whole number of them there, a lot of 3.11s, 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4, which note that the county may approve private water wells and septic fields when municipal servicing is not available. It notes all necessary approvals in alignment with provincial and federal regulations is required, and while noting that privately owned wells and septic fields are not allowed in hamlets where municipal servicing is available. As there is no municipal servicing available in Ardenode, the proposed subdivision aligns with that policy. Further detail of the county's review of technical studies related to water and wastewater is outlined in the technical review section of the report. So one thing you will notice here is there is over the 5 lots and then over 6 on this quarter section. However, because it's noted as a rural community node and defined as an urban area in the municipal development plan, that's allowed to occur. So urban area defines the hamlets as urban areas. So the 5 to 6 lot rule, depending on how you look at it, is thrown out the window with these in regards to these applications. It doesn't apply. That's for rural applications outside of these nodes. In terms of the land use bylaw, the proposed subdivision aligns with the purpose and intent of the country residential district of the land use bylaw, which is to provide for acreage development for residential purposes that's aligned with the policies of the MDP. As this proposal was determined to be in alignment with the MDP, it meets the purpose and intent of the existing land use. All future development will be required to meet the rules and regulations of the land use bylaw in regards to setback requirements, permitted and discretionary uses, and all other necessary requirements. There is one existing access off of Range Road 253 for the proposed subdivision, as well as there's an existing access for the remnant that isn't included in the subdivision. So this is how the applicant plans to access the remnant parcel that he owns. Both will be required to meet county standards as a condition of subdivision approval. In terms of our water servicing, as per our engineering consultant's recommendation, as there was a previously existing water well and there is a lack of clear internal policy on this matter, an inspection of the well was requested by a water specialist to determine that it meet Canada drinking water guidelines and had appropriate flow rates. M&M Drilling completed this report for the county's records as per McElhaney's recommendation. Alberta Health Services, however, submitted comments regarding the significant number of wells on the parcel, and they noted that they would like to have a full, groundwater hydrological assessment completed. That said, I had followed up with them, noting that there already is an existing well. This is an existing well. This isn't a new well being proposed. And let me just open up the email here. Just give it 1 second. Oh, jeez. Okay, well, I'll just summarize the email. I was going to open it, but unfortunately he had been sick and on holidays for over a month, but he got back to me and noted that they weren't aware that it had been an existing well and that they're fine with that as it is. So they don't require the full hydrological study as they had noted in their previous comments because the well was existing. So that I'm going to request that MPC remove one of the conditions once we get to that point to address the latest from Alberta Health Services. In terms of sanitary servicing, as per our engineering consultant's recommendations, a septic study was completed that determined the soils are suitable for a proposed septic field on the property. A clear review of our internal planning policies in regards to septic fields is underway, as well as a policy review for water wells, to provide more clarity for applicants and address the unique circumstances of different applications. So that's why that is as it is. So in terms of municipal reserve, in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, an appraisal was conducted on the subject property, and it noted a per acre value of $5,500 per acre. As a condition of subdivision approval, MR's cash in lieu will be required based on the final plan of survey that's submitted. This was circulated within a mile. As noted, there was no written comments received, and the apiary comment was noted and nothing came in subsequent to that. In terms of Alberta Health Services, they had their standard comments. They did want to have a phase 1 ESA submitted due to the sensitive nature and the number of lots on the quarter section. So as a condition of subdivision approval, I've requested a phase 1 ESA be required. They also noted their comment with the wells. However, they now have no concerns given that's existing. ATCO Gas have no objections. ATCO Pipelines had no objections to this application. Rosebud Gas Co-op noted that they have no objections and they have a natural gas pipeline in the area that can provide natural gas service if required. Ag Services attached their agricultural assessment, which is at the back of the report. And then there's the 2 recommendations. So I'm just going to go through the rest of the maps here. So you'll see Range Road 253, the Canadian Railway. Proposed subdivision is here in red. This is the circulation map. And then the ag assessment that was completed. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Public have anything to say? No? MPC's wishes. Brenda?
I'll move subdivision SD to 2017-28 for approval
Okay, with Appendix
with the
A.
conditions and the changes that Colton has.
Any questions? All in favor? All in favor? I don't think I see. There you go.
Before we take the vote, excuse me, through the chair, before we take the vote, Colton said he was going to pull one of the conditions up.
Yeah.
He hasn't brought that up.
Number 6.
Through the chair, with the removal of number 6.
That's part of the motion. So
All in favor?
oh,